Hi, you're watching Reddit Revelations.
The fluorescent lights of chic threads hummed their usual monotonous tune, a soundtrack to my days spent folding sweaters and politely inquiring about sizes. James, resident purveyor of fine and sometimes not so fine fabrics. My life was, for the most part, as neatly pressed and wrinkle-free as the shirts I meticulously arranged. Until, of course, Sarah discovered yoga. It started subtly, a new mat on the living room floor, quiet mornings filled with the scent of lavender and the gentle whisper of namaste. Then came the retreat, a week of inner peace and finding her center. I was happy for her, truly. Her smile when she spoke of her practice was brighter than anything I'd ever seen. She'd returned from her classes, radiating a calm I envied, her body more toned, her eyes holding a new depth. The first crack in my marital perfection appeared not with a bang, but with a misplaced yoga mat. It was a sleek navy blue one, nothing like Sarah's usual bright purple. And it smelled faintly. Male. Not the shampoo and soap male, but the sweaty, post-workout male. A seed of unease was planted. Then came the late nights. Deepening her practice, she called them. I'd lie awake, listening to the house settle, a cold dread creeping into my gut. Sarah, who usually slept like a log, would toss and turn, her breath shallow. I started checking her phone when she was in the shower, a practice I despised myself for. But the growing suspicion was a gnawing beast I couldn't control. And there it was, nestled between grocery lists and appointment reminders. A string of texts from Zen Master, pet names I never used, plans made for stolen hours, confessions of unavoidable attraction. Zen Master was her yoga instructor, a man named Liam with a sculpted physique and a smile that, I now realized with sickening certainty, was designed to disarm. The revelation hit me like a poorly folded blouse, betrayal sharp and bitter. I confronted her, my voice shaking, the carefully curated normalcy of our life shattering around me. Tears, accusations, denials that felt like more lies. She admitted it, eventually, a torrent of guilt and justification. She said it wasn't about me, that she was lost, that Liam understood her in a way I never had. The words felt like paper cuts, each one drawing more blood. The following weeks were a haze of awkward silences and forced politeness. Sarah moved into the guest room. I still went to work, still folded sweaters, but the hum of the lights seemed louder, the air thicker with my despair. One rainy Tuesday, a woman I vaguely recognized from Sarah's yoga studio walked in. She was elegant, with sharp cheekbones and eyes that held a hint of amusement. She browsed the women's section, her movements fluid and confident. "Just looking for something to lift my spirits," she said, her voice a low, melodious purr. As she spoke, a memory surfaced. Sarah had mentioned her, casually, as Catherine Liam's wife. My heart leaped into my throat, a wild, exhilarating bird of prey. Catherine, Liam's wife. A slow, insidious idea began to form, like a stain spreading across fine silk. It was born of pain, fueled by anger, and polished to a dangerous sheen by my newfound understanding. I approached Catherine, my smile as practiced as a seasoned salesman. "Looking for something special, madam?" I inquired, my voice betraying none of the turmoil within. "Perhaps something that whispers of confidence, of newfound freedom?" She chuckled, a rich, throaty sound. "You have a way with words, Mr. James," I supplied, extending a hand. "James Sterling. And I have a way with understanding what a woman truly desires, even when she hasn't quite articulated it herself." Catherine's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of curiosity dancing within them. "And what do you think I desire, James Sterling?" This was it. The abyss into which I would gladly push my carefully constructed world, as long as it dragged Liam and Sarah down with it. "I believe," I began, my gaze locking with hers, "you desire a distraction, something to occupy your thoughts, something to remind you of your own inherent allure, perhaps while a certain coach is otherwise engaged." A beat of silence. Then a slow smile spread across Catherine's face, mirroring my own developing malevolence. You have my attention, James Sterling. Tell me more about this distraction. And so the game began. A twisted, intricate dance of deception played out in the aisles of chic threads. Catherine, with her sharp wit and growing suspicion about Liam's late nights, became my unwitting accomplice. I fed her snippets of information, carefully veiled observations about Sarah's new energy, her recent acquisitions of yoga gear. I spoke of Liam's uncharacteristic generosity with his time, his unusual attentiveness to certain students. Catherine, to her credit, was a quick study. She began to ask more pointed questions, her gaze in the mirror taking on a different hue. She started to buy clothes from me again, not just the practical, but the daring, the provocative. She was transforming, not out of a desire to please Liam, but out of a need to reclaim something for herself. I positioned myself as her confidant, the man who understood the subtle nuances of relationships, the unspoken desires that festered beneath the surface. I suggested outfits that would make Sarah and Liam notice. I encouraged Catherine to embrace her own power, to fight for what was hers, even if she didn't know the full extent of the battle. The climax, as it were, arrived during one of Liam's weekend yoga retreats, a place Sarah had raved about, a place I now knew held more than just downward-facing dogs. Catherine, dressed in a stunning crimson dress I had personally selected for her, arrived at Liam's rented cottage. I had, through carefully worded suggestions to Catherine, ensured she knew exactly when and where to look. I stayed at home, a knot of anticipation tightening in my stomach. I pictured Catherine's arrival, the shock on Liam's face, the eventual confrontation with Sarah. I imagined the fallout, the messy, painful unraveling of their carefully constructed affair. The next day, Sarah returned, her usual bright demeanor replaced by a haunted weariness. She didn't speak of the retreat, of Liam. Her eyes, when they met mine, held a new kind of shame, a dawning realization. Later that week, Catherine came into the shop. She was radiant, her eyes sparkling with a triumphant, wild light. She wore a simple, elegant blue dress, a stark contrast to the red of their confrontation. She purchased a delicate silver necklace. "Thank you, James," she said, her voice low and laced with a hint of something almost regret. "You were instrumental." And then she said something that truly cemented my victory, a twisted satisfaction that settled deep within my soul. "Liam and I were going to try and rebuild. He made a mistake, a big one." She paused, her gaze drifting toward the window. "And Sarah? Well, she learned a valuable lesson too, about the consequences of misplaced energy." I smiled, a slow, measured smile that felt alien on my face. "I'm glad I could be of assistance, Catherine. Sometimes the most beautiful transformations come from the most unexpected catalysts." Sarah eventually moved back into the master bedroom. The silence between us was still there, but it was different now. It was the silence of two people who had witnessed the unraveling of their lives and, in their own destructive ways, had contributed to the chaos. I continued to run chic threads, folding sweaters, smiling politely. But beneath the veneer of normalcy, a dangerous knowledge resided. I had learned to play a game of manipulation and subtle revenge. And while I hadn't found peace, nor had I healed, I had found a chilling kind of power. The power of knowing that even in the quietest of lives, the most insidious of plans could take root and bloom. And sometimes the best way to mend what was broken was to shatter it just a little bit more.